Are we all here? Welcome, everybody. Give everybody a chance to get in here tonight. Hello, Susan. Hello, Nicole. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Janine. Give everybody a chance to get logged in here tonight. Susan, why is your tablet making you feel stupid? Hello, Dennis and Trina. Hi, Angie Myers. Candy Dickey. Welcome. Hey, Bill. Hey, Michelle. Happy birthday, Gracie. How you doing, Bill and Crystal? Tell Gracie I said happy birthday. Eric, you guys get out for a walk today, did you? I actually rode my bike down to the church. I hope I don't regret that decision in about an hour when I'm heading home. Hi, Joyce. Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is with how the live streams are posted on the YouTube page. It's kind of weird in that they don't show up. I mean, the one from a couple days from now is there, and the one for tonight never showed up. So I don't know. Yeah. So, oh, good, Gracie. I hope you had some cake and ice cream for me. Eric, glad you guys get out for a walk. A swing on the swing set. Yeah, that sounds like fun. A 65-minute walk. Good grief. Eric, everybody should be good. I would agree with that. Welcome, Matt Clements. I promised a no singing episode tonight, so you guys got off easy tonight. Y'all can be thankful for that. How far'd you go, Michelle? How about you, Nikki? How's your how things going out your way? Matt, you have two number one hits on that album. I don't want to hear it, buddy. I did Billy Joel and Aerosmith this week. I feel like I'm doing pretty good. Only a mile. That's not bad. It's a place to start. At least you're getting outside. At least the sunshine today. How about that sunshine? Good grief. I didn't know if we'd ever see the sun again. You're still working, Nikki? It's like 8 o'clock. Yeah, that's a nice place to be. That's still essential stuff, isn't it? Yes, Christine, and we're loving that sunshine, aren't we? Hello, Bill Har. Michelle needs all of her friends to be essential only to her. That attitude does not surprise me in any way. So, hi, Daryl and Jean. The fish are biting, huh, Matt? Where'd you go fishing at? D, you guys had a neighborhood picnic on the Hertenstein compound. Thank you for maintaining a 6 foot, being 6 foot apart. So, Now, Nikki, you agree that everyone should be essential only to Michelle, or that everyone should be essential only to you? I'm not sure how that works. We're going to give everybody another minute to get logged in, and we're going to jump into this thing. Getting some bluegill, huh, Matt? Oh, good. See, we got 24 people here. Who all we got? Hey, Toby. Yes, yes. The vegetarian is no fun at a cookout. We have well established this fact. Yes. All right. Hey, DW, how you doing, man? Everybody, I want you to look at your live chat thing and see DW's little icon there by his name. That's why he is my man. He put a stormtrooper up there on his profile picture. Hey, Cheryl. Joyce, if you're not seeing comments, you're probably have hidden the chat. There should be something on there to say show chat somewhere. I'm not sure what device you're watching on. So, yeah, Teresa Rick's probably outside. Cabbage steaks pass, but I will grill some veggies. Some of those can be good. Kroger slowed down today, huh, DW? Good. Hi, Joe. Hey, Mark. All right, everybody, we ready to do this? Hello, Audra. All right. By my calculation, tonight we are doing chapter 1.3. If you're not prepared to talk about chapter 1.3, then you get to listen. But that's where my estimation is that we are tonight. So, any preliminary comments about the state of your heart? Anybody want to volunteer the state of your heart? Everybody goes strangely silent when I ask the deep question. So, yeah, the Red Cross is in your heart, Joe. That's good, I guess. All right. Well, let's take a look at this. He starts off with a conversation about David, and David talking about some of the struggles in his life. And the first sentence that I marked that I would like to talk about, and here, actually, now that I'm on this, I can actually show you. Look at this. Is that first sentence marked in blue right there? I don't know if you all can see it. It says, meaning Saul, knew how to hit where it hurts. He claimed David wasn't faithful to his God. Saul was going to attack David, and he really, took something that was very sacred. I mean, we've all had somebody do this. They know something's important to you, so that's where they're going to sock you. And so Saul hit David where he knew it would hurt. So I'll ask that as my first question. You ever experienced being hit by the enemy where it really hurts? Anybody ever experienced that? What we would call low blow, or some kind of just really cheap shot, something that maybe didn't have anything to do with the situation at hand, but just taking on, made a statement just because it was hurtful, or did something just because it was hurtful, or rebelled just because it was hurtful, or whatever. Anybody ever had people, just twist the knife, say something to you, and the only reason they're saying it is because they know it's going to get at you, and that can be really, really painful, really difficult. And Candy, I'm sure, given your life in ministry, I'm sure you know exactly what we're talking about here. I want you to know, friends, that that's kind of how this works. By Satan's very nature, that's what he's going to go after. There are certain sins out there, and certain temptations, and certain yep, Mark, Susan, and Matt. Yep, you've all been there. There you go, Matt, bringing up past mistakes. We have all been in that place, and that's by Satan's very nature what he likes to do. If his job is to trip you up, it wouldn't be in his best interest to hit you on something he's not going to get you on. I mean, there are certain temptations that some of us are literally immune to. Now, there are other ones that will fall right into at the first opportunity. But there are many temptations, many sins out there that a lot of us are more susceptible to than others. I'll use myself as an example. You know, alcoholism never been an issue for me. I've never drank. I've never had a beer. Never anything. I've never even drank the first glass of wine. You know, I've never done. It just never been a part of my life. Never really had an opportunity. Never cared to. Never pursued it. So that that's something that I've never had to deal with. However, on the other end of that scale, something I know about myself is I I could have a full blown gambling addiction developed before I go to bed tonight. I know that about myself. I'm aggressive. I'm a winner, and I play things to win. And I know that, buddy, I could clean out my bank account in a hurry if I started betting on things. Why I don't watch sports much anymore, because I know that about myself. So I know that's something I got to watch out for. Now, others of you, the gambling thing may not be a deal for you. You know, maybe there's something else that you deal with. And that's the way we all are. And that's where Satan's going to hit you. Saul, being an evil person, knew that David would take very seriously his devotion to God. So, of course, that's where he's going to make accusations against him. Of course, he's going to make that be where he's going to hit David up. And so that can be very, very, very hurtful, a very hurtful thing to experience. D, this is a public forum, right? I'm just saying. Never done such a thing towards my husband during a loving discussion. Toby? All right. Yeah, so that's a challenge that many of us may with. Yeah, you challenge on eating, and candy bars are good though, aren't they, Candy? So, all right. The next little section then, after he talks about getting hit where it hurts, talks about anger. Anybody here ever deal with anger? have angry thoughts, angry feelings? Maybe be easier for me to ask anybody ever not had that experience. I got a couple of questions about that. How hard is it to fight against anger? Smart man, Toby. How hard is it to fight against anger? When we're mad, how hard is that to avoid, the nuclear option that many of us are so keen on taking sometimes? Why is anger such a slippery slope? And Mark, yeah, sometimes those things we wish we could take back, we can't. And that's why it's hard to remove them. That can be a real problem. Mm-hmm. But why is anger such a hard thing to resist? Why is it so hard to fight against? That's true, Matt. We're going to talk about that exact thing. Before this lesson is over, we're going to get to that. Because, yes, anger does have a legitimate piece. That's why God gave it to us. However, like anything that's good, too much of it can be bad. Or if we use it in the wrong way, it can be bad. And that's where we're focusing at right now. Why is it so hard to keep anger in perspective and to make it be healthy? Yeah, Joe. Anger has the potential to control us. Decisions made in anger are rarely productive. Yeah, Eric. It is hard to think through because anger is like an adrenaline. It's like putting nitro in your gas tank. It just like makes everything run real fast. And sometimes our mouth or our actions get out in front of our brain, and that's never a good thing. Yeah. Yeah, anger is definitely a defense mechanism, Teresa. Mark, I agree. There's a pride aspect to anger because it does sort of centralize us, and so I would agree with that. And pride becomes the fuel that makes anger run even stronger. It is a strong emotion, Gene, no question about it, and it could be very manipulative. It's like ourselves manipulating ourselves, and that's a very strong thing. I do agree, and Yeah, Janine, that's true. If we can again, and we're going to get to this conversation as a part of this chapter. One of the words that we don't use nearly often enough, and the reason that we don't use it is because we don't like it, and it's the word cope, COPE, and we're gonna that's a word that's going to come up before we're done here tonight, and we're going to talk about that. Yeah, because part of coping is figuring it out. Sure, Bill. And if we don't take the time to figure it out, we'd rather just let our anger deal with it. And there is a line. There is a line that's crossed. And Joe, that's the line. Where is that righteous line? We're going to talk about that before we're done here tonight. So hang on to that. Well, Christine, I think you just answered my next question before I even got a chance to ask it. I'll ask the question, then I'll comment on your statement there. What happens to unresisted anger? When we don't resist it, what happens? Well, it takes over. It becomes the driving force. We shut our brain off and let our adrenaline take over. Passionate and being angry. You know what the difference is? The difference between being passionate and being angry is whether or not I agree with you. You know, if you're having strong feelings and I agree with you, then man, you're very passionate. And I can really tune into that. However, if I disagree with you and I think you're an idiot, man, you're just angry. I mean, but it's the same thing. And so that you're right. The perspective is really the difference. Yeah, very good. Yep, you want to watch out for those reactions, Christine. Those will get you. So the big thing that in the early part of the lesson here tonight that I want to make sure that we hit on, very clearly is be careful about anger when we just let it run. Just let it flow. Let the hate flow through you, like the Emperor told Luke Skywalker. It's one of those things where that could really have a very negative connotation. And you guys, Cheryl, I hear you. You guys are all wanting to put the positive spin on anger. We're going to get there, but it can be a very good motivator. And we're going to talk about when that happens and how we can prevent it from becoming something else. We're going to get to that here in just a second. But there's a reason why, DW, whenever you quote Yoda in this, you get an automatic thumbs up, man. Gold star for you tonight. Great. I actually quoted that in the sermon last week too. Man, that's like 2 for you. Y'all, DW is rocking it out tonight. The limbic part of your brain taking over, Candy. That basically means you have no inhibitions. It's kind of your reptile brain they talk about, and you do what you want. Friends, anger is Satan's favorite tool because anger doesn't think. Anger doesn't care. Anger only wants to be satisfied, wants to be expressed, wants to do whatever it wants to do. And you want to watch out for that because, man, that could be a weapon. I mean, you want to talk about the idea of what's the phrase? Reverse psychology. Satan can put us in a place where he can use reverse psychology on us by making us angry about something and causing us to do all kind of damage to stuff that we don't want to have damaged, and that's why it's a favorite tool, because he can get us to do his work for him in those situations. Now, let's ask the question here that a number of you are dying to get to here. Can anger be righteous? Can anger be righteous? I know a number of you have already said that it can be. Yes, I also believe it can be. Some of the biggest changes that I've made in my life began in my life because I was angry about something. So yes, Cheryl, I agree. I fully believe that anger can be righteous, but it's not automatically righteous. That's the catch. The catch is you have to redeem the anger. It has to be pointed in the right direction. It has to be expressed in a healthy way. Just, exploding and being upset and being mad, that doesn't really do anything. However, if people get angry and they do things in their community. I mean, I sent out a text, many of you probably got it a little bit ago, about some opportunities going on around the community and stuff. Look, those things are very important. It can, Gene, it can motivate you to change something. And Eric motivated us to change. And so when we are able to allow anger to motivate us rather than being the anger that kind of makes our decisions for us, as long as we're still driving the train and not our baser instincts, I guess we could say, that can become very dangerous because there has to be thought, intention, plan, desired outcome. You got to have all those things because if you don't, then you're just being angry, and that's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah, Janine, Jesus was certainly, I mean, if you ever read the upsetting of the temple, I mean, Jesus didn't do that passively. So he was angry at the merchants. He tipped over their tables and did all these things. And the reason that he did that, though, is he had a plan in mind. He had something that he wanted to do. And it was very important to him that he make his point very clear, which he did. Yes, Mark, I couldn't agree more. 20-year-old Tim didn't do very well at distinguishing anger either. In fact, 30-year-old Tim, 40-year-old Tim, even 45-year-old Tim sometimes struggles with that. But if we don't learn, and we're going to talk about coping here in a second, if we don't learn how to do that, if we don't learn healthy outlets for the anger that we feel, if we don't allow those things, anger can become poison. I mean, it can become just a complete trash fire in our lives, and you definitely don't be wanting that. So we'll say a little more about that in a second. We're still on the first page, 20 minutes in, so let's keep moving here. I'm thinking about that, Joe. I mean, obviously there has to be truth in it. If you're angry about something doesn't have truth in it, then yes, you're wasting your time. I agree with that. But I would just say a word of caution about feelings and emotions because they can be very manipulative. I think we need to understand what's causing them. And Joe, you know this. The book that we're reading in our Saturday morning men's group is one about men and how we approach the world in good ways and do good things. And that book, called Wild at Heart, really opens up a lot of examination as to why we do the things we do. And, as every man does when they read that book, I was reading it just before I came online here, thinking about, stuff from my childhood and stuff that I dealt with growing up and experiences I had and doubts that I feel and thinking through all those things. I find that a lot of those emotions may not be placed in the right place. I may not be angry at the right people or angry at the right situations. And if we're going to allow our anger to drive us in situations like that, on emotions that are not well founded, that can be extremely dangerous. All right, let's turn the page here. We're roaring right through this one. He quotes Psalm 139. Now, any of you who have read Psalm 139 or know about it, Psalm 139, you could legitimately make the argument that Psalm 139 is one of the most beautiful passages of Scripture in the whole Bible. And we've mentioned a couple of times, obviously, because this first week of the study is based on this verse from Psalm 139. But just talks about how God knew us before we were born, knew us in our mother's womb, formed us in the way that we are and all these things. Just a beautiful statement. And yet in the middle of that comes the line from this week. He says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting." Why is that a dangerous prayer? I mean, the word dangerous prayer is what he's been talking about a couple of times through this. Why is that prayer, Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24? "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting." Why is that a dangerous prayer? Paulie, having Wi-Fi problems. Sorry about that. I see some people dropping in and out quite a bit tonight. We were having a heck of a time earlier trying to get online. But why is that passage from Psalm 139? Why is that a dangerous prayer? To ask God to search me, to know my heart, know my anxious thoughts. See if there's, I mean, how many of us are willing to go to God and say, "Hey, God, will you check me out, see if there's anything offensive in me?" I mean, that's yeah, Gene, it is very vulnerable. I mean, who wants to be searched? You're right, Candy. Allowing God into your heart means allowing him into your thoughts and what goes on. And Mark, that can be very intimidating. And that's a dangerous prayer, in that we're opening our lives up to something that we may not be so interested in opening ourselves up to. And that could be very, very frightening in the midst of what's going on. So, hey, I just want to encourage everybody here. That's true, Teresa. May not like his answer. I got 33 of you in here at the moment. Don't be afraid to get in the discussion. I don't see 33 names popping up here. So if you're in here, at least say hello. Let us know that you're here. And appreciate one person jumps out now. All right. All right. Then immediately after that, he says here, after that little passage from Psalm 139, he says, difficult to pray. This passage from 139, difficult to pray, but even more challenging to apply and to live. All right, so I've read it a couple of times to you here, this little prayer from Psalm 139. Is it possible to pray those verses or pray that concept and not live it? Is it possible to live that concept from Psalm 139 and not live it? Yeah, Janine, that can be very frightening. And yeah, D, sometimes out of our comfort zone, not where we want to go. And a prayer like that will push us there. So, hey, Lisa, welcome. Joe, admitting, yes, God does know us well, including the stuff we put in quotation marks, Joe, and always remember that. Hello, Nan, welcome. God does tend to make us uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, it can provoke us to change, to grow, to become better, and to allow ourselves to have such an experience. But if we play it safe or stay on the sidelines, I'm wondering if we could pray that prayer and stay on the sidelines, if we're not living it. Hey, Cheryl and Jack, if we're not living it out that way, see, at the Cheryl, I think that's where we end up. A lot of times we pray, but we'd rather just, God, would you just God take care of that? I'm not interested to, have to make all these changes and do all this stuff. And I'm just curious, do you think you could pray this prayer? Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way to everlasting. Hey, Margie, glad to have you guys out tonight. Can we pray that prayer and not live it? Maybe I'll make that a rhetorical question because my answer is no. Yeah, you could say the words, but I don't know that you're going to mean it without living it. And living it can be intimidating. And in the next paragraph after that one, he says, be forewarned, this prayer has the potential to convict you, correct you, to redirect your life. The prayer from Psalm 139 has the potential to convict you, to correct you, and redirect your life. So I ask you, are you willing to be convicted? Or what does it mean to be convicted by this prayer? To ask God to search us and to know if there's any offense inside of us. Yeah. Yeah, Joe. If we get an elephant running around our lives, it's one bite at a time, and sometimes we got to chew on that thing for a while. Yeah. Yeah, Nan, it's a struggle, we all have from time to time, and sometimes we need to allow God even more leeway inside of our lives when things are challenging, things are busy, because we need the conviction. There is offense in us, and that offense can take many forms. And if we don't allow God some free reign in there to do some work or to convict us, or allow God the opportunity to say, this piece of you here needs to go, that can hamper the prayer process. The next thing he says is to correct us. I'm going out on a working assumption here that most of us are not interested in being corrected. That's been my experience with most other people, and certainly my experience of myself. But correction is about course correction. It's about repenting. It's about stop going the wrong way and start going the right way. And it is definitely a humbling experience, Christina. I couldn't agree more. And if we rebel against God, as Teresa says here, it does lead to conviction and chastisement, which is something none of us ever enjoy. But a lot of times we want to use prayer to conform God to our will rather than the other way around. And the author of our salvation and the creator of the universe isn't always willing to march to our tune. So that can become a problem. I didn't even get to the last part here. The third thing he says is this prayer can also redirect us. If we're going in a direction that we happen to like, going toward a goal that we want to attain, we may not be terribly interested in a course correction. We may not be terribly interested in being redirected, but God may say, this way you're going is not going to go anyplace good. And before you walk off the edge of whatever the problem is you're working toward, maybe we ought to try walking someplace else. And sometimes that's something we're not interested in doing either, because we may see a prize. The devil may be sitting on our back with a carrot on the end of a string, leading us in the wrong direction. And, as Candy says here, we're not willing to submit ourselves to anybody but ourselves. And that bullheadedness can lead to a lot of destruction. Yeah, that's true, Joe. Sometimes the transformation that we want it quicker. And the process, look, I'll admit it, I hate it. I wish it would go faster. I wish, I could just pray and have everything in my life hunky-dory when I say amen. And I can't say that never happens, but it's certainly the exception to the rule. Trina, that's true. There's a lot of stuff we have floating around inside of us that we may not be comfortable with. And the last thing we want is to shine a light on whatever that is. And yeah, the redirected path, Teresa, the redirected path is definitely the better path, but it's not always the one that we want to travel. So here's the next paragraph he writes, is maybe you're still thinking this is no big deal. Maybe you're wondering why you should ask God to search your heart when he already knows what's going on inside of him, inside of us. You know what's in there. He knows what's in there. So why ask God to search? Yeah, Cheryl, that's quite a course redirect. So my friends, why? I mean, that is essentially the prayer from Psalm 139 is search us, know us. We know it. He knows it. Why ask? What is the purpose of that prayer? What is the purpose of asking God to search us, giving him the invitation in that he could do it if he wants to? Why is it important to give God the invitation? Anybody? Okay, Nan, it does show submission to his will. Absolutely. Yeah, Teresa, God wants to lead us back toward him. Makes us humble, certainly, Cheryl. Yes, Susan, our hearts can deceive us. We're going to talk about that a little more later in this chapter. We like to think that we know more than we actually do sometimes. Yeah, Mark, we think that the goal of God is to, stuff our bad stuff down far enough that makes the outside look good, but that's not really what God is concerned about. I agree. Yes, that's true, Christina. God is absolutely a gentleman. He doesn't force his way. If we want to make mistakes and suffer the consequences, he's perfectly willing to let us do that. That's interesting, Candy. Yeah, sometimes we think we know more than we do. We give ourselves a lot of credit sometimes. Yeah, to ask God to search us, Joe, is certainly a time that we have to admit we're struggling, and we're not always real quick to do that, and much less ask for help, of course. And that can be a very intimidating place to be, to allow God to work in us, because that, by implication, means that we haven't figured it out ourselves, and many of us are not interested in that. Okay, now this is one statement I made last night that I'm not really retracting, but I want to clarify a little bit. I talked about how I don't believe that I don't believe our heart's desire is to deceive us. And I know he gets into that discussion a little bit in this chapter. I still maintain that I don't think our heart's intention is to deceive us. Now, I certainly would agree that it can deceive us, but I think the way that happens is if we don't guard our hearts, and that's kind of what our last part of the discussion tonight is going to be about, is what does it mean to guard our hearts? Sometimes I don't think we do that. We want to stay in our comfort zone, but we allow our heart we wear our heart on our sleeve, and that can be very dangerous. Janine, yeah, I went to Haiti a few years back too. Candy, I don't know that we need to give him permission, but since he's not going to force himself on us, if we don't allow him some room to work, what good is it if he looks into us? It's more about the invitation is more about our preparedness than God needing us to allow it to happen. Will God show us what he wants if we don't ask? Yes, I believe he will show us. I do not think that we'll see it if we're not looking for it, or not in tune, or being faithful in some way. Because, how many times in your life have you finally come to a realization of what God is asking, and you start reflecting back on your life and realize you're actually pretty stupid for not seeing it, because it was pretty obvious all the time. But because of, who knows what reason, we were kept from seeing it. Yeah, Janine, having been to Haiti myself, I'm sure a trip there opened your eyes significantly. Anger over how those children were suffering became righteous when you chose to. Oh, you're addressing Janine's statement, Joe. I get it. Yeah, Eric, we do need to open up to him, open up to what he wants us to do, because that's the only way it's going to work. Again, if God's going to be a gentleman and not force himself upon us, the only way it's going to work is if we allow it to work. And if we don't allow it to do anything, if we don't allow it any latitude, any space to do anything, it's just good advice that we don't take. And so the important thing here, and I want to kind of shift, I want to kind of steer the conversation this way, is I believe that our hearts will deceive us if we don't guard them. We've had so many discussions these last couple of days about things like, being in our comfort zone, and the importance of getting out of our comfort zone, and all those different things. And yet, so we guard our comfort, but we stick our heart right here on our sleeve. And that leads to problems, because it gets broken. And a broken heart doesn't function properly. And a dysfunctional heart makes life kind of run out of control. It makes God, as Mark just said there, have to knock several times before we'll allow God to do something. And sometimes he's going to knock us over the head to get our attention. I mean, we've all been there one time or another. But, the importance of guarding your heart, that's where I want to spend our last couple of minutes together here tonight talking about. Because I think the heart, as the scripture here from Jeremiah talks about, Jeremiah 17:9, talks about how the human heart is deceitful. It is deceitful if it's not guarded. The human heart needs to be guarded. We need to guard our hearts. We need to protect what's going on in there. Because again, and I can't stress this enough, you get brokenness, you get regret, you get pain, you get, something inside your heart that doesn't belong there, that causes dysfunction. It's going to be a problem. Yeah, Candy, I I guess I'm using a phrase here I'm not defining. I think most people don't guard their hearts enough in the way I'm talking about. Now, are some people very guarded? Absolutely, but that's something else. What I'm talking about is you guard your heart by what you allow to reside there. What do you allow in there? What do you allow to fester inside of your heart? Because if you're not allowing good things in there, or you're filling up what space you have in your heart with bad things like anger, regret, so on and so forth. Uh, yes, quarantining your heart is probably not the way to go. But the idea is that if you allow things to take up space in your heart that are bad, you have less space in your heart for things that are good. So if you have a warped view of yourself, or if you have a warped view of the world, or you have a warped view of relationships, or you have a warped idea of whatever, or you're carrying around pain, regret, you're doing things that are not healthy. If you're trying to express or cope with something in a damaging way, if you're allowing that to take up space in your heart, by definition, you're not going to have room for good things in there. And I think that's why we allow God to search us, because God may come along and say, we got a lot of negativity going on in here. Probably going to need to put some of that out, because if we continue to carry these things and continue to punish ourselves for things, or continue to respond negatively in our relationships, treat our spouses like garbage, treat our family and friends like garbage, or not be thankful. You're not thankful because some way or whatever. That's a symptom of having stuff in your heart that you really, really don't want there. Because we only have limited space in our heart. To allow too much bad stuff to get there means a whole lot of bad stuff's going to come out. And healthy, of course, Teresa, that's what we're looking for. And a lot of people don't want to get hurt. And see, that's exactly it, Candy. A lot of people have a hurt that they're carrying in there, and they guard their heart because they don't want anybody to bump it, because it's got all this scar tissue and yucky stuff. And because they're carrying around so much regret, they're carrying around so much resentment, they're carrying around so much negativity, and that anger can take a lot of different forms. But if you fill your heart up with that negative stuff, of course you don't want somebody to bump it, because it shakes all that garbage up. And you're not going to want that. And that's why learning how to cope is so very important. Because if we don't, we have to cope. You can't live without coping. It is impossible. You will literally burst into flames and die if you don't cope. So that's why it's so important. You're going to cope one way or another. You only get to choose whether you do it in a healthy way or you do it in an unhealthy way. That's why I run every day, because I got to burn that stuff off, because I know that I tend at times to be a little bit intense. And I know that if I don't find a way to cope with that and burn some of that stuff off, I will drive people insane. And so running and that has been a way that I've learned to cope with it. Obviously, exercise has other benefits as well. But for me, it is all about burning off negativity, because I've spent an embarrassing amount of my life so mad I couldn't even see straight, to the point that it was bad. And I knew that much negativity physically was not good for me, let alone what it was doing to me in other areas of my life. And yes, blowing things up in a legal way is always fun. I agree, Joe. Yeah, that Cheryl, I agree, and that's what I eventually got to. But I had a long journey to get before I arrived there. And if we're not willing to take that journey, it's tough. And part of that journey is you got to learn how to cope. And and people cope in different ways: hobbies, exercise, reading, serving others. Cheryl, I agree. Yes, clearly, all those are great ways of coping. But if you don't find your way that's healthy, you will find your way that is not healthy. And that's where, all addictions, all of them, pick which addiction you want to talk about: alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever idea that you want. Those are all coping skills running out of control. That's what they are. People fail to cope in a healthy way. So now they're coping with an unhealthy way. And all the stuff that on people and all this debauchery and terrible things, all that comes from is people wanting to cope or needing to cope and not making the choice to do it in a healthy way, doing it in a damaging way. And they're damaging their bodies, damaging their relationship, damaging their souls. And that's really sad. And that's what comes out of a wounded heart that's not learned to cope and heal. Not said, God, why don't you find what's there and you deal with it? I'm just going to let it out in this very terrible negative way. And it's hard. Eric, I agree. Fresh air is a great one. Great way. And we finally got a little bit of that today. Joyce, serving others, you do it very well. And Cheryl would agree that you do it very well, Joyce. So thank you. Chocolate helps. Just go with the fun size chocolate, not the fun size chocolate. Yeah, Christina, we've all been there. Negative coping skills are so easy to fall into because we don't even have to try. In fact, a negative coping skill is a symptom of not trying. That's where all that stuff comes from. As soon as you stop trying, you're getting onto that. And I think that's why we invite God to search us. Because I would rather God come to me and say, Tim, go run. You just need a few miles. Just go. I would much rather God say that than for me to find something damaging. Because, look, I only have so many hours in a day, and I have a lot to do. I don't have time to be damaging myself because and you are the same. I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal. You guys have the exact same thing in your life. You have too many people counting on you. You're too important to too many people for you to go down, because if you go down, people are going to go down with you. So if you don't take care of yourself and allow God to take an examination of your life and say, hey, there's some stuff here's got to go. You are putting people you love at risk. And yes, like Twinkies. Twinkies can be a terrible temptation. So coping is guarding our heart. Yes, that is what I am. That is what I am saying. Can we spend too much time coping? That's a really good question. Honestly, my inclination is to say no. However, there has to be, what's the word I'm looking for? There has to be some intention around that, because I think that I think most people, in my experience, they don't cope in healthy ways enough, so they waste a lot of time coping in unhealthy ways. I think I said that right. So do people take a little extra time? I mean, Luke, Cool Hand Luke was in here yesterday talking about shooting guns. Does that take up a lot of time? I'm sure it does, but it's worth every minute to him, to his wife, to his kids, because that gives him a chance to literally blow off some steam. And I think that, so can you spend too much time coping? I mean, yes, obviously you can get distracted and waste time screwing around, of course. But if you're legitimately coping, and like Bill says, and folks, let's take a minute to recognize that if anybody in this list tonight who knows about coping, it's got to be Bill Martin. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others, and that is the truth. Nan, balance is what we're looking for, and selfishness leads to an addiction. Addictions are always bad. I agree, Joe. And the idea here is that we need to be able to express ourselves in healthy ways, and that's going to take time. Now, again, that can end up being an excuse. Of course it can. But the idea is I think most people that I know, and most people who are in this chat right now, it would be my bias to say that most of us probably don't spend enough time. Because if you still have negativity coming out of your life, it could be because you're not doing positive coping skills enough yet. It's when those resentments and negativity, when that stuff builds up, If you don't take enough time to cope with it in a healthy way, it will come out in a negative way, and it always takes up more time, let alone the damage that it causes. So I think that's what we need to be careful about, is to make sure we're coping in a healthy way. And all right. All right, man, I've been at this for 45 minutes. I feel like I'm keeping you guys too long here tonight. Let's skip to the very last page. I've already said a lot of the stuff already, but the word cope, the reason that I put the word cope out there is because he does that. In the right toward the end there, he says, I don't have a problem. This is just one thing I do to cope. And he was talking about, making excuses. Well, I just go buy this because, I'm doing some retail therapy, or I'm going to eat this ice cream because I want ice cream, or I'm going to eat this Twinkie because I want a Twinkie, or I'm going to go yell at somebody just because somebody got it coming. Those are coping skills, but they're all negative. And I feel like one of the things that we need to do is allow God to search us. And let me tell you something. One of the redirects that he may take is say, you need to do better coping. You need to do more intentional coping. You need to find a hobby. You need to be able to did I just get kicked off? Am I still on? You need to be willing to allow God to tell you that some more coping needs to happen. And I think that that's part of allowing God to search us, is God may assign us some coping skills. And we may think, I'm too busy to have a hobby. I'm too busy to go exercise. I'm too busy to read a book. I'm too busy to, clean the garage, or, whatever's a hobby, whatever something is that you would enjoy doing. I'm too busy for that. You know how important I am, God, to take time to go and do that? Yet, if you don't do those things, that negativity is going to come out of you in a bad way. And that's exactly what you don't want. All right. I don't, am I kicked off? My computer's doing something weird. Will somebody say something? Tell me if I'm still here, if I'm literally talking to myself now. I may need to go do some coping skills. Okay. I can't tell if I'm still on. Anyways, that brings us to the end of the chapter. I sure hope you guys can still see me. All right, here's the last line, and I'm going to read this straight from the book here. Without Christ, your heart is deceitful, and I would definitely agree with that. So don't allow anything to. Everybody's texting me now. I don't know if that means that the chat's down or what. I apologize for that. Why is the chat down anyways? What's going on here? I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on with the chat here, but hey, everybody, thank you for coming out tonight. I hope you can still see me. Know that without Christ, your heart is deceitful. It will deceive you, and that's why we want to allow Jesus the chance to take a look inside of our hearts and maybe tell us there are some things that need adjusted. There's some things that need to happen. There's some things that you need to learn how to cope in a better way, and that's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. So, all right. Well, we'll come back together tomorrow night for chapter 1.4, which is called Hard Choices. Oh, don't that sound like fun? We're going to come back for Hard Choices tomorrow night. Plan again, be here at 8 o'clock. I appreciate it. Gosh, I hate that the chat's down. I'm sure you guys are saying some cool stuff. So, anyways, thanks for coming out tonight. Apparently, you got to drop me a text. Let me know how this went. If you're here and you're too intimidated to jump in the chat, please send me a text. There were almost 40 people here tonight, and there's 31 of us here now. I'd love to know who's here. I don't know who I'm talking to. So to those of you who jumped to the chat, thank you. Please don't be intimidated to do that. That's what makes this fun, is when we can interact. And I appreciate y'all being here. I hope everybody's doing okay. Drop me a text. Let me know how it's going. I love you all very much. Go wash your hands.